good evening, good afternoon, good morning, midday, pick a time, good for you. Welcome back to Passionate Oral Talk Radio Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain. Excitement is all over the place today, not only here in the States, but overseas where they're anxiously waiting the results. I understand you're going to have to wait until Saturday for them to see who becomes president, a convicted felon or a woman. What can I say? Today on State of Current Affairs, we're going to be discussing AI, artificial intelligence, along with the trafficking of boys and girls. And if there's any room left in the program, we may just underneath the door frame say something about the candidates. However, let's start off the show with Viki. Good morning, Viki. How are you from Singapore?
Hi, good morning and good evening to the people around here, Bangladesh, India, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and wherever you are. And of course, in the northern hemisphere, you've got North America, Canada, Europe, and of course, North Asia. Thank you for the show, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to State of Current Affairs. It is an important show, and it is a voice from the people for the people, Lillian. We're doing this for the people, really, and we're looking for sponsors to sponsor us so that we can go more platforms, we can do more shows, we can go full time, right? And we can invite more people on the show. So we're looking for sponsors wherever you are. You could be donating to us. We probably will have a Kickstarter at some point in time, a donation to the show. From you, you do not have to be a corporation. It could be an individual. You could be someone from the main street who would like to buy us a coffee, or you could join us in the show, or you would like to subscribe. So you go to the links below where you can find Lillian's website and Lillian's YouTube. And of course, you can come to my YouTube channel too, which is Talk About Life, and also the Platinum platform as a Facebook group to find me. But really, Lillian is the main person. She's the person behind the technology right now. And she's doing all the work. And I'm happy about this because I don't have to do any of this work. I just have to show up. So it is 10 p.m. Singapore time, and eyes are all trained on the American election, of course. We'll talk a little bit about that if we have time from Lillian. It's reaching fever pitch at this time. And in Singapore, eyes are on America too, because there's so much commentary about whether the Trump administration will bring growth to the world economy or will slow down the world economy due to the tariffs policy that he will have. We'll leave that a little bit later. But the first article for us today is about girls, children, trafficking. And then I'm going to talk a little bit from the data about human trafficking as a whole. So this article is from South China Morning Post. Not quite sure you can see that. Children in the rural areas. Anxiety in Malaysia after multiple girls go missing. Our daughters are not safe now. Police say 7 girls have been reported missing over the past 5 months, with some feared kidnapped. And it goes to say that the recent disappearances of several girls, including a 17-year-old who vanished during a family meal at a small town restaurant. It has raised alarm among Malaysians, with one child rights group, warning of trafficking and sexual abuse affecting children, young girls, and young women from vulnerable communities. And it says that at least 7 girls have been reported missing in the last 5 months. And then it says that there is the latest case, a 17-year-old Emma Fatima, who disappeared after leaving family breakfast at a restaurant when she went to the washroom. Now that should really like send shivers down your spine when you are having a family dinner or family meal at a family restaurant, and when you go to the toilet your children never came back. So now this is just one of the many articles that came out recently, which is really sending shivers down the spine of parents. Not far where um, I've been in some of the places that I go shopping in, and shopping malls, there was a news that came out where I went to, all right, in some places in Malaysia, um, that a girl was kidnapped at the place where I was visiting during that period of time. And that sent shivers down my spine. And when you think the world is safe, and when you think you're with your family, you're with a place of familiarity, I'm just going to say that criminals are just watching over you when you are least um, on defense. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the state of Malaysia. Not many people know Malaysia. I've been to Malaysia. It is a very peaceful country. It is a Muslim state, a Muslim country, but largely it's one of the, I should say, a country that's full of diversity and respect of different religion and faith, and people do live together harmoniously here in Malaysia. Even though they're practicing uh, faith is Muslim, but they do respect different people with a different faith. So but I would say that even though it's a country that is wealthy in its petroleum, and Muslim countries have all the petroleum. It's rich in its country in its petroleum and palm oil. They have all the kinds of oil, palm oil. And also petroleum, and also certain gas and nuclear. There are certain parts of the country which is still really in a state of its rural areas. And I think it's easier to go to big cities where populations are huge and dense to kind of get the human trafficking. I think we see historically the trend is people get abducted because they get their kidneys cut out. I think this is no more just a myth. I think people read that in the news 10, 20 years ago. People think that it's a myth when someone disappears and someone wakes up in the bathtub full of ice, and their kidneys or their organs have disappeared. So that's it's no more just a conspiracy theory, but it is news right now. Organ trafficking, sexual abuse, child abuse, even human organ trafficking, and the exploits of using the human body, right, for cannibalism. You've seen that over the news also. So in Malaysia, I would say that in many countries, I think the trend is going into the rural areas, because it's harder to go to populated countries right now, because that is where the police are, because we've got so much news about human trafficking right now, and people are really setting up in the big cities. But the human traffickers are now going to third world countries, and where countries have the rural areas. They can lure young girls who have not seen the big cities. You give them a nice dress, a nice necklace, or a nice toy, they will follow you. Or you give them a meal, right, they will follow you. So I would say that the world is no more a safe place for families. It's never been safe, but it's not a Disneyland, even in the rural areas where you think it is safe, where you are with your families and your children get abducted. So that's scary. And I want to bring an article up, which is, if you could see through the official website, some of the figures very quickly. Migration portal is, you could go to www.migrationdataportal.org. That's where you can get the first glance of human trafficking data. All right. I'm just going to rattle off the data because it saves our audience and listeners all these numbers and going to Google to search, and you can hear it in 20 minutes. All right, here it says between the years of 2002 to 2020 2002 to 2022, which is 20 years, the number of individual cases that has been captured in the data for human trafficking is 206,549 individual cases. And I'm talking about these are the cases that were reported. All right, they may not be solved, but they were reported. And the number of countries that these people go missing is 194. And the number of nationalities is 190. And looking at the age range, the highest group of age range that go missing is the ages between 9 to 17. 9 to 17, which is about 23.9 thousand, that constitute 19% of the total number of data that was captured. And I'm talking about data captured. Think about, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Think about a lot of data that's not captured. And that is 23.9 thousand, 19% of that 200,000 cases between that 20 years. The next category of age group that has the highest number of people that is reported missing is, voila, 30 to 38 years old. 30 to 38 years old, and that is also 19% of the whole database, and that is 23.5 thousand, 23,500 adults, ranging between the age of 30 to 38 who goes missing in the past 20 years. And we see that the highest age range, which is from 9 to 17, 19%, and 30 to 38, 19%. Now that's really strange. What about the people in between? Yes, they are scattered in between. But I think there are reasons. Here we can briefly see the reasons. 9 to 17, girls and boys. Sexual exploits, child labor, etc. 30 to 38, usually, again, labor, forced labor, maybe sexual exploits, etc. So these are the two age groups that I'm pointing out that is the highest number of people that have gone missing. Now look at the number of people that do not go missing, right? After 48, you are safe. So Lillian, you and I, we're safe, okay? After 48, you're safe because that constitute only 6%. It means that you're no more useful for you are no more useful for the criminals, all right? Not for forced labor, not for sexual exploits, and not for organ transplant or organ theft. Now the other age group, which is a little bit surprising, which is 9%, it's between 27 to 29, right? 27 to 29, which is really, really strange. With that code, that is 9%. That I think because young people can run, right? 27 to 29. If you're captured, you can run for your life. Now, the other vulnerable group is 0 to 8 years old, which constitute 5%, which is 5.7 thousand. Now, this is one of the least number of reported cases of data, which constitute babies, toddlers, young, really, really young children, right? Below 8 years old. I would say that the data may not reflect the truth because a lot of young people, I'm not going to say, a lot of people do not report young people missing. Um, a lot of people, a lot of babies are not reported. They go under the radar for whatever reasons, but it's not that high. But from 9 to 17, that's the highest group of young people that gets trafficked. And I really think that from 0 to 8 years old, even though it constitutes 5%, and 5% out of 20 to 100,000, that's almost like 50,000 kids. Um, that's almost, they got to make a calculation. Yeah, that's almost like 5,000 kids that go missing. And we are talking about babies and toddlers. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. What about those that is below? So I think we've got to multiply that by a factor of 10. It could be a factor of 10 or a factor of 20. So depending on how conservative you are. Then we also have the data that these are the highest reasons for trafficking. Number one, sexual exploit, which is 61%, and then forced labor, which is 37%, and other exploits, which constitute 7%. So I'm going to say this and reiterate some of these news that came out of Asia in the last 6 months or a year or so. There were a lot of adults lured by promise of good jobs with good wages, and they left the country without telling their families, and they're usually aged between 20 something to 30s, and that's the time where they are productive, right? Professionally productive, and they are actually captured by the Cambodian mafia groups, and they are put into international scam calls and international banking calls, banking scams. So you've got millions of dollars being lost through the internet, because these are the people that can be trained to go onto the internet, to go onto the web, to kind of get your data, get your telephone, etc., call you, or well, just make up a story and get your money and get your account. And there are stories where grandmothers, grandfathers, they're being exploited. They got the millions of retirement funds being scammed because someone says, I've got your son right here. So I think these are real cases because it happened in the neighboring countries around where Singapore is. Now, this does not go to disparage any of the countries. We really want to raise the alarm to parents, to families, to civil groups, and to people like us, knowing that the world is not a Disneyland. And I would like to say that, yes, you can leave your children. A lot of countries, like in Japan, they leave at the age of 7, they take their school bags, take the buses, and they bring them out to the schools, and the children come back in public buses, and they go back home. But I'm going to say that the world isn't going to be like in Japan, and Japan isn't a country that has no crime. And I'm going to say that the crime rate has risen because people are finding hardships right now, because are losing jobs. Companies are closing down. Retail companies are closing. Cafes are closing. So, and people have this need for instant money, instant gratification, but instant money because they have a real need for food. So crime rate is going to go up. The groceries prices are not going to go down. Houses prices are going to go up. It's going to be harder to get a car. It's going to be harder to get a job. You're going to compete in a red hot ocean. And there you have it. You feel that you're living in a cutthroat world. And sometimes you just want to quit. So I'm just showing everyone that these numbers are real. We have to come together as one people in solidarity, that we can live in a safer world for all of us across the world. If we report, if we see things that are suspicious, criminals, crimes, would-be criminals, would-be crimes, I think it will keep everyone safe. And I think I look forward to the days where I could run in the streets without my shoes. with your playing with your friends. I don't think those days will come back anymore. So that is a little bit the data. I'm not going to go into the data, but everyone can go to www.migrationdataportal.org. um, it has all the data about, this says the bigger picture. It tells you about the where they get their data sources, how to counter trafficking, and of course they do give a little bit of reasons that on why the trend has gone up in the last. There's some graphs here which you can look at. It has gone up since 2015 and it's not gone down. It's just zooped all the way up since 2015, a little bit down, but 2020 gone up, gone down a little bit, but the trend is continuing up. But again, Lillian, if these crimes are committed in third world countries and in rural countries, you will not get the data. And that's what I can assure you. That's why some of these data, especially children, will not be reflected in these global data because they are collected from England, right? From the United Nations office. So you've got data in third world countries, rural areas, they will not be reported to the central government, and the central government do not bother to report it to the top. And I'm just thinking that this is really sad. And it's going to happen more because more people are getting more desperate. And not only that, desperate people turn to not only crime, but they turn to drugs for that escapism. Um, Next article. Now, again, not to be, not to like stir fear in anyone. This news, or I should say, this post that comes out in Instagram. It's about this girl showing how she can generate her own video and speak in different languages, 100 languages, and in different kind of messages, and it looks exactly like a human being. And that sends fear down my spine, Lillian. We're talking about people like us. We will use it well. We will use it for good. But what about people who have intent to destroy, to create crime, to go into the dark forces? Now they, with that intention, will be using this 100 times, 1,000 times than us, just using it one time for recreational purposes, right? We know it, but will we use it? Maybe not. Maybe for podcasts, right? And of course, we don't want them to replace us. However, the AI generative AI tools online right now, and if you and I will look, we are in the technology digital world right now. It is spinning so fast. 1 year ago, at this time when I was talking about AI with Bernice Loman, we were just talking about Chat GPT, how it was able to create a sermon for the pastors, and they were really so happy because they were just typing, the Bible scripture, and they came out the whole sermon, and they just have to rattle off the sermon. They don't even have to write, and they were just saying, like, singing praises for Chat GPT. And 1 year later, 12 months later, you're looking at the totally different world right now. You're looking at AI who's able to tell your children to go hang themselves, to go and die, to commit the suicide, and when you are not there as a parent. And these are the forces that we're talking about. And we're not even talking about fighting poverty. I mean, we should be channeling our energy, our resources into helping humanity. And now we're talking about fighting a machine. So to me, that's not only scary, that's sad. I love the fact that we're in the digital world whereby we're using AI to make our jobs easier. But I'm just thinking that it's always a double-edged sword. People like us, Lillian, you and I, we are just one of the minorities in the world. I would just say good and kind-hearted people who are truthful to their soul and their spirit. But there are people, and much more so because of the sinful nature of human beings, they will use any tool to their advantage when people are not looking. So again, two articles plus one Instagram post on AI called Hey Jen, which I'm going to use that, right? I'm going to use it and try. And I'm going to use one of my mom's videos. You know, my mom has passed. I'm going to use one of her videos and see if I could generate new videos of her talking and communicating with me. So, over to you. Heavy, heavy topics, but I think it's essential that we bring the world in this very short podcast, that we encapsulate what's happening around us in state of current affairs. And that's truly current affairs. And that can't be more current than us. Over to you, Lillian.
One of the things that people have to remember is that the selling of human beings is not a new thought. It's been going on through every civilization since the dawn of time. That's why you learn history, to learn from your mistakes.
Slavery.
But humans don't seem to get it. It started back out when the Germanic tribes placed a value of wealth on a person. So if you killed them, you had to pay a war guild, the value of that person's life. And lots of poems. I mean, Beowulf was based on it. And if you could not pay the debt or the value of that person, you were cast out. Or you had slavery. And don't just point your finger at the United States. All those righteous Southerners came from Europe. They were the younger brothers who had no place in their feudal society. Number one son inherited everything. Number
True.
two son went into the military. Number three son was destined for the church, and any other son, you were on your own. So there was a value placed on you. In China, Japan, and some of the other Oriental, Far East countries, who were the first to be sold off if things didn't quite work out academically? Hey, it was girls. Girls were always being sold to feed families, to get rid of.
Wives.
Wives were there. Hey, in India, they used to have to die when their husbands died. There's some value in there after all. Then you have slaves, but then you also are putting for hostages. King Richard, how much money are you going to pay to get him back? Well, you know, most of the people in England didn't want him back. They didn't think he was worth a plug nickel, but Mama ransomed him anyway. So think about it. This is nothing new, and it's been going on for a long time. What's the difference? People are beginning to notice. Several years ago in the States, there was a house with a man who had 4 or 5 women who started out as teens, and they were now mothers because he impregnated all of them. And they were in that house for 15 years. And nobody knew anything. California, same thing. And this happened in Ohio. And I'm not going to say Ohio's a backward state, but compared to the rest of the United States, it's mostly farming and small mom and pop stores. It's not California. It's not a New York or Chicago in that sense, but it was there. And then you have police informers who are paid, convicted criminals by the police to get information. All this has been accepted by our society since the dawn of time. I'm pretty sure that they paid the snake to spy on Adam and Eve to make sure whether they really obey the tenets of the Lord. Something to think about. But it's there, and it's always going to be there unless we consciously try to change our behavior, which we haven't, not since we've come down from the trees or kicked out of Eden. However you want to look at it, our behavior is deplorable. And we keep on making excuses for our behavior. which is even worse, because we really literally cannot defend ourselves when you're consorting with the dark web side of your personality. People spend billions of dollars on their credit cards to obtain and steal information, bank accounts, social security, anything that defines the id, which equals I in most languages. And they'll spend millions of dollars to get this information so that they can either hold you hostage to your own material. It's a booming business. In fact, I did a show on scam damnation, and it's considered a legitimate scam where criminals are allowed to charge on a credit card information about women going into abortion clinics and then tracking them on an app back to where they live or to the doctors. So literally, they're spying on these people and they're getting legal information from unsavory sources, and the government looks the other way because it's a lucrative trade for them. Think about that. That's where your tax dollars are going, folks. And it's just not the states. Everybody is addicted to money. It's a drug. It's our opium. It makes us feel good until it happens to us. And then all of a sudden we develop a stomachache. Selling children are easy. They don't know who they are until at least 11 or 12. And if the parents are not there to guide them and they're being brought up by someone else, and I'm not saying all institutions are bad places, they're not. But the problem is that a lot of kids who are in foster care, those are your easy marks because they've already been abandoned once. So they don't place much value on themselves. And you always want something you don't have. A child is born that way. Flash something shiny, they grab for it. We all know that. That's why we have all those doodads above their crib. So just remember that it could be your kid who's been sodomized. Priests have been doing it for thousands of years, and the good old Catholic Church just looked the other way. I'm not saying all religions are like that, but the Catholic Church is rather good at looking away. Nuns have been raped. The church looked the other way. Because there are humans and all part of your society and culture. And before you name AI as the bad guy, just remember this. Everything that AI can do is the sum total of what humans have put into those machines.
Exactly.
And it's quite possible that the machine has picked up on the inner person within the mind.
Yes.
And was transferred into that machine. So it shouldn't surprise you that there's a dark side to AI, because people will be who they are because they're comfortable in their skins and they're not going to change. We have one more minute. The U.S. elections are tomorrow, November 5th. Elon Musk has been going all over the country offering $1 million to people who are starved for cash to vote for his candidate. No, you shouldn't be doing that in a free society and democracy. But then there are different levels of democracy. Ever read Animal Farm? If you haven't, go to your local library or read it online. That will awaken you to a point where you get nauseous. 4 feet are good, but 2 feet are better. That's how the pig started out. That's where people used to call them during the 70s because Animal Farm was a big book to be read by all those college students who dropped out to
George
become
Orwell.
techies.
Yep. George Orwell, of course.
So you need to know your background, the back history. This is nothing new. As I was told by an agent, there is nothing original. It's how you present it and what you do with an idea that's been beaten to death that will distinguish you from the masses. Authors, movie script writers, play writers, think about that. Nothing original. And with that being said, we want to thank you very much for joining Viki Esther Chang from Singapore. Our company supports this program. She runs a publishing company, and she will help get your memories, experiences out into print. It's not just the rich or the victors who write history. It is the peons too, because it's the peons that's going to make the world go round, not the wealthy. So don't buy into that Mickey Mouse stuff. Interested? Contact Lillian at 484-364-1032. She will take your information and make sure Viki gets it. And she will turn it over to the appropriate people over at the publishing company so they can help you and write out a contract. So you can be starting on your first step to getting your memoirs printed and out to the general public who are very eager to hear what you have to say. How do I know this? Because podcasting wouldn't be such a lucrative business if they weren't interested. And writing your memoirs is a verbal, written form of podcasting. You'll have an audience. I guarantee it. The second company that is sponsoring us is MyFlex. So check us out at http://AI-with-Lillian.com. And the third company is with PWTRN, the Obstacles Podcast Training, anywhere from 9 all the way up to 1,000, should you wish to live that long. Check out the website, http://education.passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also go over to our website to see this all over again, https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Go to the bottom of the website, scroll down, as they say, you'll come to State of Current Affairs, click on it. There's a Google link, click on that, and voila, you're inside the belly of the beast. And you can see State of Current Affairs as many times as you want to. For now, yes, things always change, and 2025 will be a year of change. Just putting you on warning. Yes. Also, you can hear the audio on our blog. So it's passionateworldtalkradio.com/blog. And you can listen to the audio there with the 2 articles and where you can find them on the World Wide Web. So thank you very much for joining us. Our phone number is 484-364-1032. Leave a comment. Let us know if you want to appear on the program. We have a special section called the Wine, WHINE section. So if you have something to say and you know most of the world won't approve of it, please come on and put it on the text or in the phone call, and we will put it out there either with an avatar, anonymous, or if you're feeling particularly spunky that day, your name, rank, and serial number. Thank you very much for listening, and join us tomorrow.